Somewhere in the Atlantic, a naval warship is on a special mission to transport a brand new fleet of 21st century aircraft across the globe, to go to war for the first time. They have brought a new, different, and mysterious weapon, the like of which has not been seen on any battlefield before now. It's called the V-22 Osprey, part helicopter, part plane. They are headed for Al-Assad, Iraq.
Transition across the goals is approved. Landing at skid row will be at the pilot's own risk. Winds 2804.
It's a sprawling airfield, bigger than many American towns, the second largest military base in the war zone. Al-Assad is known most recently as the hot spot of Iraq. The area has seen some of the most brutal combat of the war against Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. It's the new headquarters for a U.S. Marine Corps Assault Support Squadron, VMM 263. Coming from its home base in North Carolina, the unit is made up of 250 men and women, flying and supporting 10 Osprey V-22 aircraft. The Osprey could become a superstar of modern aviation. It's able to take off and land like a helicopter in the roughest terrain, fly at the speed of a plane, and climb to more than 25,000 feet, refuel in midair, and fly vast distances. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Joseph Rock Jr. is the commander of the squadron. The Osprey's arrival here is a personal milestone. He has been a Marine Corps pilot since 1990 and remembers a time when the Osprey was little more than a dream.
And for a long time, the V-22 was probably categorized as an urban myth. It was out there somewhere, somebody was working on it. You knew somebody who had seen one once. Seeing it was like seeing Elvis or Bigfoot.
Rock started as a test pilot for the Osprey in 1997 and has been flying it ever since. He thinks the Osprey is made to order for the war in Iraq.
From the standpoint of taking it to the bad guy, you got a lot more options.
On her second deployment to Iraq, Captain Elizabeth Akaraba first flew helicopters in combat in 2004 and understands the challenges of the battlefront.
I think the V-22 has fit into just about any and every mission that's out here.
This is an aircraft, could take off vertically, fly 8 hours, and land pretty much anywhere. You don't need a 10,000-foot runway or whatever. If you need to land in the middle of a soccer stadium, or you need to land within the confines of an embassy compound, or you need to land right outside some bad guy's house because you're doing a hit where the grunts are going to go get them. I mean, that is what it really brings. I mean, it's a whole lot more flexibility in moving combat power around.
Captain Sarah Fabersoff is another pilot with the squadron who will be flying the V-22.
It's new technology, a completely new technology. You're going from a helicopter and turning it into an airplane. And it is a transformer like you see in the movie.
The big question the squadron faces: can the Osprey prove itself in the reality of warfare? Among the most expensive aircraft of its type ever invented, the Osprey cost more than $20 billion to develop. The price tag for 458 of them, more than $50 billion. But there's much more at stake than just money. The evolution of the Osprey also has been written in blood. 30 men died in notorious crashes of the Osprey in the 2 decades it took to develop. Can the Osprey escape its dark past? What has been called the world's riskiest plane has come to Iraq, perhaps the world's riskiest place to find that out.
when you're trying to advance, when you're trying to do something revolutionary and bring a tremendous capability like that, it's not without pitfalls and risks. Yeah, this is an aircraft that's had an extended developmental history, and it is a revolutionary technology, and it's different, and it scares people.
The squadron's assistant operations officer, Major Wes Spade, is on his second tour in Iraq. The Ospreys have been at the Al-Assad base for 4 weeks, and Spade is coordinating plans to take infantry troops into combat. But he has to face concerns the ground forces have about the aircraft.
We realize this is a new platform, this is a new capability. There will be some growing pains. There will be some anxieties. The nacelles will always be up, so we want to make everyone aware of the capability, but we're not, certainly don't want to force it on anyone.
So Spade must tackle things one step at a time.
We wanted to get daily operations in and around, our base and the airfield. That was our first priority. And the best way to do that is just provide general support to Marine sailors, soldiers, basic logistics movement, movement of personnel and gear from one forward operating base to another. Airfields in and around from our home base at Al-Assad all the way to the furthest reaches of Iraq out to the west, and then into areas like Baghdad. Certainly we've shown to be very capable of doing that.
But despite these achievements, there is still a reluctance to actually send the Osprey on a tactical mission.
It's just that we don't have our established role yet.
We knew coming in, we could think we're going to do certain things, and we prepared to do certain things, but you never really know what exactly you're going to do until people start asking you to use it. The job is find out, because you support the infantry, the ground combat element, what do they want? How do you get them what they want?
The most difficult thing about being an Osprey pilot or in the Osprey community is having to reestablish ourselves, to fight just to be accepted as a part of the team is very difficult. We want to help the mission, we want to save lives, we want to fight the good fight, but we have to get through the established norms. We have to help people see us as not outside the paradigm, but perhaps a better portion of a new paradigm.
The commanders and pilots know they have a great opportunity here to prove the Osprey and its capabilities. But they also know that the stakes are high. A failure now could doom the aircraft's future. A Marine Corps aviation squadron is putting the world's newest aircraft to the ultimate test in the brutal sands of Iraq. The squadron, with the improbable call sign of the Thunder Chickens, comes with a vibrant history that explains its name. First activated as a Marine transport unit in 1952, the squadron gained fame in Vietnam, flying the legendary double-rotor helicopters called Sea-Night CH-46s, or frogs, that became a symbol of that war. Known at first as the more regal Thunder Eagles, the squadron became the Thunder Chickens when there was no word in the Vietnamese language for eagles. So chickens they became, and chickens they remain. In 2005, the Marines began to phase out the frogs. The old squadron was shut down and relaunched in 2006 for the Ospreys, a new unit dedicated to a new aircraft.
There's something called a plank owner, which is a tradition in both the Navy and Marine Corps, that if you are part of a new squadron or a new unit standing up, you're called a plank owner. And if you look at all the Marines here at VMM 263, we're all plank owners, meaning we started the squadron together as VMM 263.
And the squadron sergeant major says they knew what they were getting into.
The time and service of the majority of Marines in my squadron are post 9/11. They joined the United States Marine Corps knowing that the odds was in the favor of them coming to Iraq or Afghanistan.
The leader of the maintenance crew has 3 decades as a Marine, but many on his team were not even born when the Osprey was first tested. Yet they are helping to keep aircraft that cost $70 million each in the sky.
The board that shows the status of the aircraft remains control. A lot of people, they walk out at night and there's, we have 10 aircraft and there's 4 or 5 red arrows, meaning down aircraft that can't fly. And they walk in the next morning and there's 10 green or blue arrows, means they can fly. And to them, it's just a magic transformation. They forget that there's, 80 or 90 human beings out there, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, whether it's raining, whether they have a hangar, whether or not, those planes are going to get fixed that night. And those are those 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds out there that they're out there fixing an aircraft that you're going to put 24 Marines in and fly them into a hot LZ.
They may be young, but they're not just maintenance men. They've actually made changes in how the aircraft is put together.
And when we got this, there was a lot of things that they actually took our word for it, looked at it, evaluated it, and changed it. And, they started seeing the logic of it and why we came up with those ideas. To actually realize that something you saw that you were like, hey, that could be better, and you say that and they actually do it. Some of that actually, it turned out pretty cool.
My father's exact words is that I'll be a part of history. I'll be able to work on something that's going to revolutionize the Marine Corps and the way we do things.
It's a job they take very seriously.
A lot of us sit there and joke that every time one of these birds go up, it's running off of our own blood, sweat, and tears, and that's exactly how it is. We've been on it, for most of us, for quite a few years, and we worked on it so hard that this is our family, and these are our children, and it was probably the proudest moment of my life seeing it land on this flight line out here in Iraq.
But these youngsters also have some high-powered veterans they can turn to. Jerry Greer and John Allen are 2 of the 14 engineers and mechanics assigned to the squadron from the company that invented, devised, and manufactured the Osprey.
With a chance to take a new aircraft into combat for the first time and to prove what this aircraft can do was something I didn't want to miss. Everybody always jokes that Jerry invented the V-22. He's been around it since '88.
And Jerry is still excited about the Osprey.
It's got stuff in it that's never been done on any other aircraft.
I don't know, I think it's pretty cool. It's definitely different. I mean, just even coming here, people see the airplane and they just do not know what they're looking at. So yeah, the gee whiz factor is fairly high.
By design, the Osprey lives up to its reputation as both a helicopter and a plane. What are rotors on takeoff become airplane props in the air.
Basically, is it an airplane, is it a helicopter? It is both and neither.
In fact, the Osprey has incorporated some of the best attributes of both helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. Its greatest strength is speed, which is more like an airplane's than a helicopter's. While the world's fastest helicopter has reached a speed of 249 miles per hour, the Osprey can top it at 360 miles per hour, with a cruising speed of 317. Like a first-class race car, the Osprey's horsepower is awesome. Each of its 2 engines puts out 6,100 horsepower, almost double the power of most helicopters. Another advantage, the Osprey can fly more than 1,000 miles without refueling. In combat, that means the Osprey can safely fly a radius of 430 miles from its base. For the commanding general of Al-Assad, that puts his entire region within reach.
It opens greater options for you from, say, Al-Assad and cover the entire battle space in 30 minutes.
The Osprey can reach heights unimagined in the best helicopters, up to 26,000 feet, and it can get to that ceiling at almost 12 meters per second. The Osprey's speed and altitude make it a difficult, elusive target, with flares that increase its survivability against heat-seeking missiles. It's also manufactured with carbon fiber, a futuristic, high-tech layered material that is as strong as steel and able to absorb ballistic damage and limit its spread from the point of impact. For self-defense, the Osprey is outfitted with one weapon, a .30 machine gun mounted on the plane's loading ramp, which faces backwards. Plans are in the works to add a forward-facing 3-barrel Gatling gun in the near future. technical wizardry that makes the Osprey both a plane and a helicopter is contained in huge devices known as nacelles, pieces of equipment that sit like pods on the wings outside the plane and just behind the cockpit. The nacelles are what move the blades back and forth into different positions, up as a helicopter, down as a plane.
As far as the nacelles themselves rolling up and down, there's a giant screw run by a hydraulic motor. Once again, electronically controlled from the cockpit. Wherever they request them, the screw turns and moves the nacelles up and down.
What is perhaps most stunning is that the pilot does it all with the touch of a button, a very tiny button, no bigger than a quarter, that moves the 7,000-pound nacelles that change the Osprey from a helicopter into a plane and back again. The button is known as a thumb wheel.
This 7,000+ pound nacelle with a 38-foot diameter rotor system is completely controlled by a thumb wheel. Your hand rests on the thrust control lever, just kind of like that, and your thumb naturally falls on the thumb wheel. It's an extraordinarily powerful control surface, all controlled via this tiny little button.
Kind of a standing joke that we have when guys, pilots are wrestling around. You know, we always protect our left thumb, because if that goes down, then, you know, then the pilot's hard down.
In the practiced hands of Marine Squadron VMM 263, the Osprey now stands poised for duty in the desert sands of Iraq. More than 20 years ago, in another desert not far away, the idea for the Osprey was born. In 1979, more than 3,000 extremist students in Iran seized the U.S. Embassy. Then President Jimmy Carter ordered a mission to rescue 66 hostages.
Planning for this rescue effort began shortly after our embassy was seized.
But the mission was a disaster, ending in aircraft crashing in southern Iran at a remote location codenamed Desert One.
To my deep regret, 8 of the crewmen of the 2 aircraft were killed.
That disaster led to demands to develop a new type of aircraft that could not only take off and land vertically, but also could carry combat troops and do so at speed. By 1982, a partnership of Bell Helicopter and Boeing had won a U.S. government contract. They had Ospreys on the drawing board and later in testing. The plane first took to the skies on March 19, 1989. But with costs quickly doubling, the Osprey ran into major political opposition. Worse than that, the Osprey also encountered a series of crashes. The first crash occurred in 1991, with all crew members miraculously escaping alive. In 1992, a second crash killed 9 on board, 4 Marines and 5 civilians. But the worst was yet to come. In another 8 years, there would be 2 more crashes, killing 23 Marines.
Well, I mean, if you're going to talk tough times, it would probably, at least in my experience, it begin with the mishap in Arizona, in Marana, Arizona, in April 2000. You know, that combined with the mishap later in the year in December of 2000, right there in eastern North Carolina. I mean, both, you know, tremendous tragedies in and of themselves. Both, you know, aircraft were full of friends of mine.
A witness to the April crash in Arizona, Rock was flying in formation in one of 4 Ospreys, waiting to go into a landing zone.
One section was going in to put some Marines in, while the second section was holding because we were going in to help with the extract.
From a couple of miles back, Rock saw everything start to go wrong.
You could absolutely see what was going on. We got a little side view mirror in the cockpit, and the first thing I saw was a reflected flash of that. I don't ever see light in my rearview mirror at night anymore and not think about that night.
That crash was blamed on pilot error, but the crash in December 2000 was caused by faulty wiring and possible design flaws. The program was put on hold. At first, investigators thought that the nacelles, the essence of the Osprey's function, would have to be reinvented.
There's no doubt about it. The aircraft was this close to not happening anymore. If they hadn't figured that out, again, the impression was the program may have been canceled.
In time, investigators and engineers found ways to fix those technical problems and save the program. But the Osprey's bad reputation hung on and began to be automatically attached to any mention of it in the media. It was inevitably described as the troubled V-22 Osprey. Today, these pilots and crews are now ready to go. After flying and working on the Osprey for 2 years, they want to put the memories of the tragedies behind them. Despite the old track record, they say, the Osprey's day has come. In fact, those whose lives depend on the Osprey are now its strongest defenders.
We all have families. I have 3 kids. I have a beautiful wife. None of us have any desire to be flying an aircraft that we think is going to kill us.
But as much as the commander and his pilots support the Osprey V-22, can the aircraft survive its naysayers? Those who would judge the plane on its troubled past and not its potential. Even worse, could they cancel the Osprey's future before it even sees combat? Finally, 2 months after the V-22 Osprey arrive in Iraq, the revolutionary but controversial aircraft is assigned to carry troops into combat.
But we're going to be working this area.
The squadron has been ordered to prepare for assault missions, to carry teams of Marine infantry forces on the offense into the vast deserts of western Iraq's Anbar province. It's a brutal region made famous by the Battle of Fallujah. Some see it as the crucible of U.S. efforts in Iraq. Osprey Crew Chief Joshua DeBoer knows all too well how bad it's been and how valuable the Osprey can be. He first served in Iraq in 2004, flying as a crew chief in a CH-46 Sea Knight Frog helicopter, the Osprey's predecessor. In the Battle of Fallujah, DeBoer was in the lead chopper returning to base after dropping off troops when his helicopter came under attack from rocket-propelled grenades.
Just south of Fallujah there, we took RPG fire, and one of the RPGs hit us. It took out one engine, our electrical power, and our hydraulic power all in one shot. So we didn't have a lot to work with, needless to say.
DeBoer and another Marine were in the back of the Frog. Flying at about 100 feet off the ground, the pilots decided to try to make it back on one engine. But then fire broke out in the back of the helicopter.
We tried to put it out. We couldn't put it out. Meanwhile, the entire time, the fire's getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
With the flames now wrapping around them, DeBoer and his partner were trapped.
I'm guessing between 20 and 50 feet, my other crew chief probably jumped out of the aircraft while we were still in the air. We hit the ground. The impact threw me into the cockpit face first, smashing my face against the instrument panel.
The helicopter crashed and burned. Amazingly, everyone on board escaped alive, although several with serious injuries, including DeBoer.
30% of my body with second-degree burns and lacerations to my face. You could actually see my skull in a couple of spots. It was kind of cool.
His trip to hell and back taught him one big lesson, that it is better to fly high and fast, as in the Osprey, and stay far away from ground fire.
I feel safer flying faster and higher in this aircraft than I do at 200 feet and half the speed is what we do now. I do not fear for my life anytime I fly, so.
As they prepare for their new missions, the pilots and crew chiefs gather in their ready rooms, top secret, high-tech centers lined with maps of the region and equipped with sophisticated computer programs. Here they plan every moment of the missions they face, every corner of the terrain over which they will fly, and every challenge they will encounter. As both a pilot and a ground forces commander, Major Bob Brody has considerable experience in the Anbar region. He thinks the Osprey is a particularly good fit for this battle space.
It has some unique capabilities to land in desert terrain that would be very difficult for a helicopter to land in, which is going to enable Marines to get into places that we couldn't get into before. I think if we maintain flexibility and can go after very small targets very quickly, what we do is we deny the enemy the ability to maneuver. And we interdict them, we disrupt them to the point where they can't mass and they cannot attack us.
For the first time, the Osprey will face a tactical mission. The big moment is here. 6 other aircraft will join the Ospreys on the missions. With 24 hours to go, all aircraft and infantry commanders converge to finalize exact logistics and what role each of them will play.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I think you all know me, Brody, call signs BAMS. Here's obviously from our planning preparation for this thing this is a very complex mission in comparison to what we're used to be doing. So I think that it's going to require that everyone's on their A game for tomorrow, above and beyond what we're used to.
There are still plenty of ground commanders who remain skeptical and worry about putting their troops aboard such a controversial aircraft. One of their major concerns, the Ospreys lack the ability to auto-rotate, an emergency maneuver executed by helicopter pilots if their engines fail. In auto-rotation, a pilot uses downdraft to get the rotors spinning as fast as possible to regain control of an aircraft and soften a crash landing. Because of its different design, the Osprey can't do this maneuver. But the team is confident they don't need auto-rotation. With its awesome horsepower, the Osprey can fly on one of its 2 engines in an emergency.
And the chances of having 2 engines stop working at the same time are minuscule.
I can't imagine both engines, receiving battle damage at the same time. If both engines are shot up, you probably have other issues, and auto-rotation is probably the last thing you're going to have to think about.
But there are other problems. In part because of its speed, one of the real challenges will be how to fly the Osprey at safe distances from other aircraft. Deconfliction, or keeping space between all the aircraft on the missions to avoid collisions, is an object of concern.
Deconfliction and working and operating around other aircraft, it's a serious business. It's honestly a meeting of the minds. It's a roundtable discussion, figuring out where assets need to be, and that is the next step. You can deconflict by altitude, by time, or by lateral, just by slapping a boundary down. Hey, you own this side, I own that side.
This aerial ballet, and which is what it's going to work out to be tomorrow. And I know we'll do well, but just remember that the reason we're out there is to interdict, disrupt, and conduct, scouting and screening. And I think we're going to learn a lot tomorrow out there.
The moment of truth is fast approaching. Tensions are high. It has taken decades to get to this point, but the squadron knows the morning will come quickly. Dawn breaks over the desert sands of Anbar province, casting first light on Al Assad Air Base, the second largest military operation in Iraq. In hangars along a helicopter flight line, members of a squadron known as the Thunder Chickens have been working through the night to ensure that 10 Osprey aircraft are in top shape. After decades of development, years of testing and training, after 2 months of preparation, the day of reckoning has arrived. This is the day that Osprey pilots and crews will, for the first time, take to the skies to fly ground forces on a combat mission.
I don't know if you call it nervousness or just anxiousness, but yeah, there's always a little bit of butterflies before each mission.
Boarding one of the Ospreys, Major Bob Brody, a veteran pilot and a ground forces commander, introduces the grunts to the aircraft. Most of them are seeing it up close for the first time.
I've got a very important question. Send it. Where are the armrests? Is there an in-flight manual? Right here.
of you that have not ridden on this aircraft, it is a sporty ride, and it's much different than from the 53. 53 kind of comes down. When it goes forward, it kind of leans forward. This is an airplane for all intents and purposes. So when they pull out of that zone, you're going to feel a lot of acceleration. So here's the last thing, gents. Obviously, everything goes sour on us when we need to start fighting. You just take care of business and don't worry about anything. All right, you just start taking care of that target.
This is an aircraft unlike anything they've flown in before.
Again, I can't overemphasize the acceleration and deceleration. All right, we're going to accelerate, rather rapidly. So make sure you grab on everything that you've got. Okay, try to strap it in. You guys definitely need to be strapped in, especially guys in the back.
For the Iraqi armed forces joining them on the mission, it's total future shock. They've never seen anything like this.
This is our Marine Corps' newest airplane that we're flying in over here. It's a salt sport aircraft mounted.
طيارة جديدة عملنا عليها استطلاع طيارة جديدة أول مرة راح يستخدموها بالاستطلاع عملية الاستطلاع يمكن طيارة هليكوبتر بس بعدين حتى حتى طيارة اعتيادية طيارة مستخدمة.
Their first missions will take 2 days of flying. Ospreys head out across the vast landscape, joined by a Huey attack helicopter and a Super Cobra gunship. Their destination is 34 miles to the northeast, an area codenamed RSA. On day one, their target is a village, codenamed Buccaneers. Intelligence reports have determined it is a regular rest stop for insurgents infiltrating Iraq to bolster enemy forces. The Marines need to cut them off at the pass. The Ospreys are flying more than 40 Marines into the village so they can make contact with leaders of the local community and demonstrate a show of strength. They plan to go door to door in search of suspects. But first, they must get there safely. Armed with Hellfire missiles, rockets, and heavy-duty machine guns, the Huey and the Cobra carry the firepower to act as escorts for the mission. As they head to their first destination, the Ospreys fly high to stay out of range of any surface-to-air missiles or rocket launchers until the last moment. The Cobra and the Huey are the first to fly down close to the village, spotting the safest and most efficient landing zone for the Osprey to drop down and unload the troops. On board the low-flying Huey, a door gunner prepares a smoke flare signal, tossing it out of his helicopter to mark the best location for the Ospreys to land. In moments, the Ospreys swoop down, descending first in plane mode, then rotating their nacelles, the equipment that changes them from planes into helicopters, they make the final descent. As they land, the environment fights back. Like any helicopter landing in this desert, the Osprey's giant blades stir up a blizzard of flying sand and dust. It is the type of situation that can turn deadly. It can blind or disorient pilots and the crews guiding them down. But the Osprey has a sophisticated computerized control system that comes to the rescue. For the hover couple, the system links with an onboard global positioning system, or GPS, to automatically read the plane's position and height and help land the aircraft for the pilot. Once safely on the ground, the Osprey pilots have another technical advantage. Thick sand wraps around them and threatens to blind the ground troops as they disembark. The pilots engage the nacelles to blow away the sandstorm. Once it's clear, the Marines' infantry forces hit the ground quickly, fanning out around the village. They will stay on here as the Ospreys again take to the skies and return to base. Security in Anbar province has improved enormously since the first Marines arrived here in 2004, but the enemy is still a serious threat in this region. Sending the squadron on these missions, the commanding general of Al-Assad is determined to turn the tables.
There is still an active enemy out there, but we maintain a high operational tempo in support of all the actions here in order to keep continuous pressure on it. We want Al-Anbar to be a dangerous place for a foreign fighter or for an insurgent.
Trying to cover this vast region by ground alone would be impossible. Distances the Osprey can cover in minutes could take hours. And here, the Osprey also outstrips helicopters. The Osprey's strengths, speeds of more than 300 miles an hour and range of more than 1,000 miles without refueling, come into play. It may fly at the speed of a plane, yet it can land at locations no plane can approach. Day 2 of their first ground combat missions begins. They are flying more than 40 infantry troops to the far west of the war zone to scour the border of Iraq and Syria. This is notorious territory. It has been a well-known route for smugglers and bandits for centuries. Today, insurgents are coming this way. This operation includes a small armada of aircraft. Their targets are a multitude of hiding places, visible only from above. Distant side roads, ravines, wadis or dried-up riverbeds, and even small caves. Huey and Cobra pilots flying escort lead the search. The Ospreys stay high until a Cobra pilot spots a cave they've been seeking. Intelligence reports have indicated this could be a storage location for a cache of weapons and explosives being smuggled across the country. Once again, it's time for the Ospreys to bring in the infantry. Once again, the troops hit the ground. The Ospreys wait while the infantry forces close in on the cave. But it's a dry hole. If it has been used as a weapons storage facility, it's now been emptied. Frustrated, the infantry forces return to the Ospreys that again take to the air to continue the search. With so many aircraft, the challenges that the mission commanders and pilots studied so closely in their planning are always present. The question of deconfliction, avoiding crashing into each other like the planes in the tragic mission into Iran a quarter of a century ago. Out here, it's no longer history, it's the real thing. Throughout the day, they fly up and down the border, smoothly integrating with other aircraft. As they return to base, it's been 2 days of combat operations. And it's been a long 2 days. For the pilots, it's been tough flying. For the crews, it's been an exhausting mission. They have faced several tough tests. But the men, women, and the aircraft have met them all. Despite coming up empty-handed against the unseen enemy, despite the hardships, it's been a smooth operation. The Ospreys have proved they are ready for combat. They can get troops where they need to go. They can do it in the toughest environment. And all along, the Osprey's technology has proved vitally important. The aircraft that some claimed could be a disaster in a war zone like Iraq, simply performing smoothly and without incident, has become a benchmark of success. These Ospreys have risen to the challenge, proving that their attributes far outweigh their past failures, most of which are now more than a decade old. The men and women of the squadron feel good about what they have done. But they will soon get a report card from their ultimate authority, in person. Daily life in Iraq is no day at the beach. But for the squadron known as the Thunder Chickens, it has its moments. On the Osprey's windswept flight line, Captain Michael Parrott has just returned from his first mission flying as the commander of his aircraft. And his support team has a ceremony awaiting him, a type of military baptism to celebrate the moment.
So it was an eventful day. My first flight as an aircraft commander in the V-22. This was the perfect ending to a perfect day.
Oh, very nice!
All right.
As dirty as I can smooch me. Oh, God, get the fuck off me! What?
A day to remember, with friends and in a career. But a new day brings another, more dignified ceremony. The arrival of the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, General James T. Conway. He has come here to see Osprey operations on the front line firsthand.
Bless you, man, for what you do. Keep doing it.
Keep on doing it, boys.
It is revolutionary across the entirety of the world. And we're just excited to see you guys and gals continue to prove this thing. DC is watching.
He likes what he sees. He says the Osprey is making history, that the Osprey represents the future, not just here, but around the world. While the aircraft's introduction to the battle zone has been incremental, its advocates say its future is unlimited.
It is a superior aircraft that is going to support Marine Corps aviations and take us to places that we don't even know about yet, I don't think.
I won't tell you this is the future of the Marine Corps, but the concept, to me, is the future of all aviation.
While this feels familiar, because some of us have been to Iraq before, all new experiences and all new mission planning. Everything is somewhat new. It has an old flavor and feel to it, but it's all new.
That's what these pilots hope for, a new day and a new chance for an aircraft they say deserves both.
There's definitely an evolution that the aircraft is going to have to go through in order to be used to its full potential.
You know, it's all about just trying to find out how to leverage the capabilities that each one can bring to best effect. Carry more, go faster, go farther. Those are all kind of raw capabilities. You only find out what the aircraft can do when it's stretched by people asking it to do things.
I think we're doing the job, and people, as they get more comfortable with us, as they get more interaction with us, as we get integrated, they're falling in love with the airframe.
It has taken a quarter of a century of tough challenges to bring the Osprey V-22 tiltrotor aircraft to this distant battlefield for the first time. It's been an arduous journey, but its advocates insist it's only the beginning. Somewhere in the Atlantic, a naval warship is on a special mission to transport a brand new fleet of 21st century aircraft across the globe, to go to war for the first time. They have brought a new, different, and mysterious weapon, the like of which has not been seen on any battlefield before now. It's called the V-22 Osprey, part helicopter, part plane. They are headed for Al-Assad, Iraq.
Transition across the borders of the landing at Skid Row via pilots on wrist, winds 2804.
It's a sprawling airfield, bigger than many American towns, the second largest military base in the war zone. Al-Assad is known most recently as the hot spot of Iraq. The area has seen some of the most brutal combat of the war against Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda. It's the new headquarters for a U.S. Marine Corps, much more at stake than just money. The evolution of the Osprey also has been written in blood. 30 men died in notorious crashes of the Osprey in the 2 decades it took to develop. Can the Osprey escape its dark past? What has been called the world's riskiest plane has come to Iraq, perhaps the world's riskiest place to find that out.
When you're trying to advance, when you're trying to do something revolutionary and bring a tremendous capability like that, it's not without pitfalls and risks. Yeah, this is an aircraft that's had an extended developmental history, and it is a revolutionary technology, and it's different, and it scares people.
The squadron's assistant operations officer, Major Wes Spade, is on his second tour in Iraq. The Ospreys have been at the Al-Assad base for 4 weeks, and Spade is coordinating plans to take infantry troops into combat. But he has to face concerns the ground forces have about the aircraft.
We realize this is a new platform, this is a new capability. There will be some growing pains. There will be some anxieties. The nacelles will always be up, right? So, we want to make everyone aware of the capability, but we're not, certainly don't want to force it on anyone.
So, Assault Support Squadron, VMM 263. Coming from its home base in North Carolina, the unit is made up of 250 men and women, flying and supporting 10 Osprey V-22 aircraft. The Osprey could become a superstar of modern aviation. It's able to take off and land like a helicopter in the roughest terrain, fly at the speed of a plane, and climb to more than 25,000 feet, refuel in midair, and fly vast distances. Lieutenant Colonel Paul Joseph Rock, Jr. is the commander of the squadron. The Osprey's arrival here is a personal milestone. He has been a Marine Corps pilot since 1990 and remembers a time when the Osprey was little more than a dream.
And for a long time, the V-22 was probably categorized as an urban myth. It was out there somewhere, somebody was working on it. You knew somebody who had seen one once. Seeing it was like seeing Elvis or Bigfoot.
Rock started as a test pilot for the Osprey in 1997 and has been flying it ever since. He thinks the Osprey is made to order for the war in Iraq.
From the standpoint of taking it to the bad guy, you got a lot more options.
On her second deployment to Iraq, Captain Elizabeth Akaraba first flew helicopters in combat in 2004 and understands the challenges of the battlefront.
I think the V-22 has fit into just about any and every mission that's out here.
This is an aircraft, could take off vertically, fly 8 hours, and land pretty much anywhere. You don't need a 10,000-foot runway or whatever. If you need to land in the middle of a soccer stadium, or you need to land within the confines of an embassy compound, or you need to land right outside some bad guy's house because you're doing a hit where the grunts are going to go get them. I mean, that is what it really brings. I mean, it's a whole lot more flexibility in moving combat power around.
Captain Sarah Fabersoff is another pilot with the squadron who will be flying the V-22.
It's new technology, a completely new technology. You're going from a helicopter and turning it into an airplane. And it is a transformer like you see in the movie.
The big question the squadron faces: can the Osprey prove itself in the reality of warfare? Among the most expensive aircraft of its type ever invented, the Osprey cost more than $20 billion to develop. Price tag for 458 of them, more than $50 billion. But this aid must tackle things one step at a time.
We wanted to get daily operations in and around, our base and the airfield, that was our first priority. And the best way to do that is just provide general support to Marine sailors, soldiers, basic logistics movement, movement of personnel and gear from one forward operating base to another, airfields in and around from our home base at Al-Assad all the way to the furthest reaches of Iraq out to the west, and then into areas like Baghdad. Certainly we've shown to be very capable of doing that.
But despite these achievements, there is still a reluctance to actually send the Osprey on a tactical mission.
It's just that we don't have our established role yet.
We knew coming in, we could think we're going to do certain things, and we prepared to do certain things, but you never really know what exactly you're going to do until people start asking you to use it. The job is find out, because you support the infantry, the ground combat element, what do they want? How do you get them what they want?
The most difficult thing about being an Osprey pilot or in the Osprey community is having to reestablish ourselves to fight just to be accepted as a part of the team is very difficult. We want to help the mission, we want to save lives, we want to fight the good fight, but we have to get through the established norms. We have to help people see us as not outside.